Good morning, everyone, both in person and virtually. Welcome to this exciting panel brought to you by UC Women in Tech. I am Carolina Manel, a senior application developer at UC Irvine, and the upcoming chair as of September of the UC Women in Tech Committee, or UC WIT. Thank you. Today we have an incredible session planned for you with incredible women. But before we get started, let me take a moment to talk a little bit about UC WIT and its mission. UC WIT is a community that brings together women from all our different campuses to exchange ideas, information, and initiatives that can be replicated. Let me on the next slide. Yeah, so that was me. Okay, so we were here. So UC WIT, it's a community that brings together women from all our different campuses to exchange ideas, information, and initiatives that can be replicated across campuses to advance the professional goals and aspirations of women in tech in our UC system. If you are eager to connect with your campus representatives and explore more, please visit our brand new website at wit.ucop.edu. Our topic today is Leveling Up Women in Tech, and it is my great privilege to introduce this remarkable woman who will share their insights. Let me go to the next slide. Yeah. Who will share their insights in how we, as individual contributors, can grow in our careers, converting aspirations into goals and being open to unexpected career opportunities. Our panel will be moderated by Patricia Juárez, a senior business system analyst with the CITA Imagine team at Berkeley IT. Patricia brings an impressive 33 years of experience in the IT industry from both Mexico and the US. She is an active contributor to the UCV DEIVGA efforts and has developed and conducted a series of sessions on this topic with various departments on campus. Patricia has also made significant contributions as an independent native scholar and author. She is also a leader in her community. Joining Patricia on the panel, we have Charron Andrus, who holds a BC in Organizational Leadership from Biola University and an MA in Gerontology from the University of Southern California. With 11 years of experience in the University of California, Charron is dedicated to advocating for diversity, inclusivity, and equity among faculty, staff, and students. She is the co-founder of Black at UC and co-lead the EDUCOS Diversity and IT Community Group. Her passion lies in fostering meaningful relationships with higher education and broader communities. Our final panelist is Rashmi Undekar, who currently serves as the lead HR generalist in information technology services for UC Los Angeles. With over 15 years of experience in human resources, Rashmi is responsible for delivering exceptional HR services, fostering organizational development, and enhancing the employee experience. With a deep understanding of both human resources and IT, Rashmi collaborates closely with leadership to drive effective HR practices. She received the 2019 UC San Diego Exemplary Staff Employee of the Year Award for her outstanding contributions. Can we please give them an applause? Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Carol. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome for being here. And thank you again and for taking the time to be here. And special thanks to Charron and Rashmi for being here, for sharing their knowledge. Thank you again, Carol, for being here with us in this. This is very important topic. From my perspective, I think we are, those of us individual contributors, we are the rock and the foundation of the university, right? Who would agree with that? Right? I want to see hands with that. Yay. So see, this is a very important topic, and you are in the perfect place. And also before we continue, before we start, actually, I would like to also see who supports individual contributors, who is in support, who like to support the work of individual contributors. And raise your hand, like, yeah, be proud. I really support them. Yes, thank you very much. So it's a very important topic. However, sometimes in my experience, I've noticed that precisely because we are the rock and the foundation of the university, sometimes our work is undervalued and is overlooked, right? Right. I'm seeing some of you nodding. And sometimes our work is just taken for granted, right? Right. So it has happened to me. So but regardless of whether our work is valued, which I hope that grows, but sometimes, again, as I mentioned, our work is undervalued. Regardless of where we are at this point, we have always, as technologists, there's a point in our life in which we always ask, what's next, right? What's next in my career? And one of the natural answers could be, well, how about a managerial position, right? I want to apply for that. What do I need to do? But also I've also heard several of us saying, but I don't want to. Why do I want to? Why would I have to, right? So we're going to talk about this, about how exploring what would it mean, several aspects of being an individual contributor. And we have two great women here with us that we can get a lot of information from them. And as your moderator, I'm going to make sure that we have enough time for your questions. Please start thinking about your questions. It's a really privilege. It's a great privilege to have them here with us. So we can really get lots of their knowledge. So, and I know, Carol, you gave a great presentation, great intro of the three of us, but so that all the audience here starts getting familiar with you both, I would like to ask you in 2 or 3 sentences, like very quick, how would you describe your career trajectory? And I'm going to start with Charron and then with Rashmi.
2 to 3 sentences. Okay. I don't know if I could do that, but I'll be very brief. Prior to higher education, I worked in private industry and I was a manager in what we like to call shadow IT. So I've always worked in clinical spaces. I have my master's in gerontology and I went to pharmacy school. So, but always had an IT leaning. And I had a very traumatic first-time experience as a manager. And so when I was recruited to work at UC Davis Health, I made a conscious decision to go as an individual contributor because I had been so scarred from the previous management experience that I said, I don't ever want to be responsible for anybody other than myself. But after working at Davis Health for several years and being an advocate and really engaging in staff advocacy, advocacy around Black and Brown folks who are working for the university, I started to realize that if I wanted to see certain changes, I needed to be at a certain level and I needed to be in the room to make those things happen. And so then I said, even though the thought of getting back into that management space was very unattractive, because I'm a servant leader, I felt like I'm going to kind of lay myself out there and I'm just going to deal with it. And so I just started taking steps towards becoming a manager again. So taking classes, engaging in different projects and things like that. And then became a manager at UC Davis Health and was there for 9 years and then moved over to Berkeley 2.5 years ago as the associate CISO.
Thank you, Charron.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Rashmi Umdaker. So my career trajectory has been very different from both Patricia and Charron. So my career path has mostly been in human resources. I started at UC San Diego back in 2005. I started out doing some work in staff development, and then moved on a little bit to do some fund management. So got my feet wet in a little bit of the financial side, but definitely knew I wanted to stay on the human side of working with people. Moved over to become an HR specialist in a department out in San Diego, then was promoted into a manager position as an HR and admin manager. We went through some restructuring over in IT over in San Diego, went over to, the HR function got centralized into our campus HR. So I went back to an individual contributor role, and then now in LA, an individual contributor role as well. Throughout my career, I've really worked with both managers and staff, kind of figuring out what's kind of the best fit for their skill set and their kind of their passion. I've definitely seen some folks go from individual contributor to manager and, not be successful, like is kind of the next step that people think they need to go into. And seen managers, really, it takes you away from the kind of the technical hands-on work that you're doing, and that's not what they're excited about doing. So kind of having those conversations with them, and figuring out if that's the best career path for them, and kind of also showing them, we have career tracks. There's so many more, there's so many opportunities in IT for folks to go into different paths, whether it be, in one job function versus another job family. And then kind of considering, do you really want to do management, and having those conversations with them? Alternatively, what do you like about being an individual contributor, and how can you work with your manager to kind of advocate for yourself? And then also, have those conversations and be open with your manager about what your career interests are. So that's just kind of my trajectory.
Thank you. Thank you both. Just very briefly, I started my career in IT. Well, please don't laugh, or please support me. 1989. I don't know if you remember when the computers, well, I maybe the laptop didn't even exist, but the big ones didn't even have the network card. You remember? I am seeing somebody now. I had that was my beginning, opening them, putting the cards, and then the jumpers. I don't know, you remember that? It was crazy. So one of my first things that I did, I set up networks, a whole network on my own, with my own hands, and I loved it. So that was in 1989 in Mexico. And since then, I've been an individual contributor, and I have tons of experience. Pretty much the only thing that I haven't done is a DBA. I've never been a DBA, but I don't know if you remember coding in C++ and all that stuff. I did, been there, done that. And I've learned a lot about the different leadership styles, about the different management styles. And yeah, so that's why I'm very happy to be here. So, now that we, well, for us to start learning or confirming what we know about being an individual contributor, now from the HR perspective, I would like to ask, since we have here our specialist, I would like to ask Rashmi. So as the HR specialist, and obviously you bring a lot of knowledge and a lot of love to what you do. I mean, you can tell that you love what you do. So from that perspective, what could you give us a quick overview of the individual career tracks? Yeah, okay, so that we have an idea.
So some of you may or may not be familiar with career tracks, but I'm sure most of you are. So career tracks was really kind of developed to kind of, put together positions by job, family, function, career level, right? And within that career tracks, you have multiple levels going from 1 to 5. There are some job families and functions that don't go up to a level 5, right? But you in the individual contributor track, you see the 1 to 3, you get into a 4 and a 5, which is really where we start to see folks leading as individual contributors, right? And they are not necessarily leading people resources, they're not people managers, but they're still leading in terms of projects. You're still learning to develop those managerial skills, but in a different regard, right? You're not having to deal with as a individual, like basically a lot of the HR, performance management, hiring, separations, compensation, right? But you get to really be that subject matter expert. And a lot of times you also tend to see where managers are relying on their 4s and 5s for that technical key expertise. So, like I mentioned before, a lot of managers, you get into the management role, you start to drift away from the technical. And so you may not be that subject matter expert, but you have someone on your team that you can lean on. So I think that's, definitely one thing of career tracks that I think is great. And then because there's so many different functions that you can go into, you might be an applications programmer, but maybe you've also had some systems administrator experience or some systems integration experience or some DBA experience, right? And you can kind of look at career tracks, and we have it posted on our resource page too, where you can see what does it take to, what are those core functions or areas of responsibilities that I would be doing, for example, as an information systems analyst 4 versus an applications programmer 4. And then what are those knowledge, skills, and abilities that you need to be able to get to those positions? And then I think, you can use that as a guide to talk to your manager, kind of, hey, these are some things that I'm interested in. You never know, right? There might be, the position may not exist today, but there might be opportunities in the future. It might lend itself to a new position being created. I think also with all the UCs being on career tracks, you're not so limited just to your organization or your location. And I think definitely the pandemic has brought about a little bit more flexibility in being remote. For me too, I went from San Diego to LA, was lucky enough to be able to work 100% remote, which that wasn't necessarily always there before. So I think those are some things to consider. But I think using that career tracks matrix is helpful for folks to just understand what are those positions, what do those look like? And then maybe using that as a guide with your managers to talk to them about what you're looking for in your career. I think the information systems analyst, we see that as kind of the jack of all trades. So maybe you don't want to do applications programming 100%, and you want your day to be have a little bit of variety. I would say the information systems analyst job function is a great one for that, right? You can do a little bit of everything. No two positions are alike in the ISA family, right? You see folks that are doing project management, some business systems analysts work, some app programming. In other ISAs, we see people doing some systems integration, some PM work, and some security work. So it's a little bit of that jack of all trade, which I think is great for people who like variety and don't want to do like the same thing every day.
Thank you, Rashmi. Very, very, very useful, right? Very interesting. So, but now that we have an overview of the individual career tracks, I'd like us to start exploring. Let's say that we kind of are thinking, well, maybe let me take a look. What would it be to go into a managerial position? So I would like us to know what it would entail. So I would like to ask, and I'm going to start first with Charron. When thinking about your career growth and trajectory that you just mentioned in 2-3 phases, sentences earlier, what are some of the things that should be considered for making the decision to stay as an individual contributor or to go into a leadership position? And Charron, I'm sorry, before you answer, I forgot to mention that you can send your questions through slido.com. The information I think is here on the slide deck, and code is #UCWIT23. Thank you. Charron, thank you.
So I talk to people all the time. I get questions about, I want to move into leadership. And one of the first things that I have people consider, because oftentimes it's, I want to make more money, or, I've just been here so long, I feel like I should be a 4, I feel like I should be a 5, or I feel like I should be a manager. And I encourage people to, when they're thinking about management, is it's like cliche, but find the why. For me, it's people. I like to serve people. I like to help people, because if you don't have like some kind of like true foundation of why you want to go into management, it's going to get tough really fast, and that paycheck is not going to sustain you, and that title is not going to sustain you. So you really have to be like, there's a reason why I'm going into management. There's a reason why I want to do this work, so that when the days get hard and you're like dealing with the politics, that you have that thing to say, okay, this is why I do this, even though it's very frustrating and it's very challenging. I also encourage people, and this is what I did as I was on the track of, I'm an individual contributor. I'm seeing that I want to go into management, but I want to make sure that I do it in a very kind of thoughtful way. I started taking the management classes. So the classes that you're required to take at the UC when you go into a supervisory or management, they have a set of classes, and this was of course pre-pandemic, so they were in person. I started to take those classes, one, to get the information on how to be a good manager, how to be a good leader, but I also wanted to see folks who were already in management and like what they were struggling with and like what they were complaining about or what tips and tricks they were sharing with each other so that I could say, okay, like this makes sense. Like, yes, I'm going to do this and I'm going in with my eyes fully open. I'm not like delusioned and thinking it's going to be some paradise. So I think thinking about those things and really, you know, I feel like it's like homework. It's like you really should be thoughtful because being a technologist, and I was a clinical application specialist for many years, and then a project manager, technical project manager for many years. It's a skill set. Management and leadership is a skill set. And if you're not willing to invest in educating yourself and training yourself for that, then it might not be the thing that you should do because you might not be as successful and you might actually cause harm to the folks that you're managing and leading. So I guess, you know, do your homework, really think about what your why is before you take that step. Or it could be, all of those things could be the thing that says, I want to stay on IR and just progress in that space.
Thank you. Thank you, Charron. And Russian.
So I think kind of along the same lines, I think we're, I've had conversations with folks of maybe trying to keep kind of an activity journal and then try to find out kind of what are the things that you do that energize you and what are the things that drain you. And I think that if you start to do that, it helps you, I think trends emerge from that, right? You'll start to see, am I energized by coaching and mentoring people? Am I energized, by, creating a strategy or am I more energized by being this subject matter expert in what I'm doing today? Getting into that flow where you're focusing deeply on whatever that task at hand or that project at hand. And then I think that helps you kind of figure out, do I want to go down the individual contributor route or do I want to go down the management route? And then I think also looking at going down the management route is also maybe not necessarily a promotion, but a kind of a change in profession, right? Because it is a totally different track when you go down management. And I think that there's misconceptions of what management is. I know in UC San Diego, we had a leadership training program, which was really helpful for folks to go through that were looking to become managers and leaders. And it was an IT leadership academy that we had developed. And it kind of, I had heard, some people came out of it thinking that's what I wanted to do. I came out of it thinking that's absolutely not, I don't want to do that anymore. So it gave me that there was a lot of homework and reading that went into that program, right? And so it really helped people figure out that that's something that they were either really interested in continuing or really kind of, this is, absolutely, I like what I'm doing. I like to be responsible for my work and my work only, and I go home, right? But then I think the other thing that we also did at UCSD was great was we started developing kind of work lead positions or creating positions at the individual contributor level, for example, a P4 or P5, but adding a HERA designation. So we still, for example, I would work with managers saying, I really need somebody to help with offload some of my supervisory management responsibilities. My team's getting too big, but I still need someone to still do hands-on technical work too. How can we do both, right? And it was the best of both worlds for, on the management side, you had someone that could now supervise, but their time supervising was maybe 30% of their role. 70% was still technical hands-on work, but it also helped that employee get a little bit of a glimpse of what management was, right? They would be doing the hiring, they would be doing performance appraisals, but on a very much, that wasn't the focus of their position, which then helped them figure out if this is what they kind of their career path that they wanted to do, but kind of an introductory and they're not just thrown in kind of here's, 20 staff or 10 staff that you have to supervise. So that's something I think that was really great that kind of helped people kind of figure out their career trajectory as well.
Thank you. Thank you both. I'd like to add something like two sides of the coin, right? In my 33 years of being an individual contributor, one of the reasons, because I ask myself this question lots of times, right? Should I go into management? And one of the answers, and Charron, I think you put it nicely. For me, it was a P word. It was politics. For me, it was like, oh, do I want to go into politics? Whereas as an individual, right? Whereas as an individual contributor, at least, and we know IT is pretty creative, right? I mean, IT, because, you know, when I started, well, lots of years ago, 34 years ago, because I graduated with two majors in system theory of systems and finance. So my first job was finance. Oh my, please don't tell anyone from finance. I didn't like it. It was boring. It was boring, really. But when I went into IT, and again, I set up my first network, oh, I love it. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I could do it pretty much, of course, obviously following protocols and so on, right? But it's actually pretty creative, right? If we're doing code, nobody's going to say, you have to do this line. Like, no, I mean, you do your own code, right? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, projects and so on. Of course, we need to follow policy protocols and so on, but it's pretty creative. So what I thought, if I go into management, I need to follow standard politics. Like, how I want it. But also in my experience, I've been a leader in my community since 2008, and I've been managing projects of up to 200 people. I've been in managerial positions in my community. So now I'm in a path. I'm in a space in my career in which I want to do. What I want to do is like merge. So I already have a lot of experience in managing, again, up to 200 people in projects. So I want to. I'm now trying to find how can I bring it here. Right, in my community, I've been through tons of politics, and especially us women in leadership. Right, those of you, even if we are not in an official leadership position, but by the simple fact that we are in IT, guess what? We are leaders. Not a lot of women can be in this position, even if it's just not just, but even if you're just starting your career in IT, that puts us in a leadership position. So that's the good news. So thank you. So also part of this, another side that I would like to bring, it's that unfortunately there is a painful and sometimes unfortunately common phenomenon that is a stigma that comes when we do not want to follow or go into leadership position. So I would like to ask, and I'm going to start with Rashmi this time, and then Charron, is how do we deal with that? What do we do about it?
So I think the things I've heard from employees is, I feel like the only way to grow is to, or climb the ladder is to become a manager. Or if I don't express interest in this, my supervisor may not think that I'm ambitious or I'm showing initiative, but I think that folks can definitely grow as individual contributors and climb that ladder through the individual contributor route. I think, again, like if you're looking at those level 4 and 5 positions, the expectation of those positions are that you are leading and mentoring staff. You're leading projects, and within that, those positions, you're learning those managerial skills, just not from a people manager perspective. But, I think ultimately it's important to get your management buy-in and support, and having those conversations with them and being open. I think, even myself, not an individual contributor in IT, but like in HR, I think, I've been fortunate enough to San Diego and here in LA to have leadership that kind of allows that leeway and that sphere of influence to be able to, either it's develop policies or provide the guidance. But, I think a lot of that does stem from your management and your leadership. But I think having those conversations and being open with your manager is very important. So, they know kind of what your interests are, and they're also not assuming it based on the strengths or weaknesses that they see, as they work with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would add, it's educating ourselves, but educating those around us, including our management, that management and leadership doesn't live in only certain positions. So I think the more that we understand that managing folks and managing things and managing processes happens at all levels. And the more that that becomes kind of like the de facto thought train, I think the less stigma there is around folks who decide that they don't want to. You know, I have lots of staff in the security office who are just like, no, I never want to be a supervisor. I never want to manage. I don't want to lose, you know, the technical. I want to be the deep dive on that. But I also want to lead folks and I want to mentor folks. And so, like Rashmi said, making sure that your managers and your supervisors understand that just because you don't want to go into a traditional supervisory or management role, that you're not lacking in a desire to lead and to manage things and to grow yourself. You know, I think that's the other thing. Sometimes all the focus is on, oh, this management training course or this cohort of things, but there's lots of stuff that as an individual contributor that's out there for you. So making sure that you're looking for those opportunities to grow those skills, but also taking advantage of the management stuff, because just because you don't want to be a manager doesn't mean those skills aren't going to be helpful for you. And so when your managers and supervisors see that, they're like, okay, it's not that they want to be stagnant or that, you know, they're just, you know, just laissez-faire about their career lives. They have a plan and they have goals and they have thoughts about how they want to develop, and they're pursuing that. So I can get behind that and I can support that. So I think that that's very important. Yeah.
Thank you, Charron. Thank you, Rashmi. And just from my perspective, I just would add, I've heard that sometimes I've been told, how come you have been 30? When I had been 30 years in IT, 3 years ago. They would tell me, how come you are not a manager? How come? So I think for me, the question would be, I think instead of asking, what do we do about the stigma? I think I would ask, where does the stigma come from? Right? Who says it? Why do they say that? And I'm going to say something. I hope I'm not kicked out of the room, but don't tell anyone. But 33 years ago, and maybe even 10 years, maybe even 5 years ago, maybe a year ago, IT used to be a boys' club, right? Right. I like my male coworkers, but we know that, right? It used to be. I remember again when when I started opening the machines and then putting the cards, and then when I did the network of the whole office, big office, of course I had to go on my knees and then connect and so on and so forth. I remember my colleagues, my male colleagues at a time would tell me, "Oh, how are you going to do it? You're a lady," or something like that, right? You know, that type of. So where those comments come from? I mean, I think we have grown a lot, and I hope nobody is telling any of the young IT women, how are you going to do that? You're going to ruin your nails or whatever, right? So if they're not doing that, and we already grown, we already took a step beyond that. We are over that. I think we should also start getting over the stigma, right? Why are we adding stigma when everybody's is free? No, to decide, and maybe what if there haven't been enough resources, right? And Charron, thank you for saying that, because what you mentioned, what if we still want to, we love being individual contributors, maybe the P word, politics, is too much. Maybe in the next phase of our life, maybe we'll do it, maybe not now. So what you mentioned, Charron, is a great segue, because I would like to ask both of you. So what if we want to continue being individual contributors, but how do we level up? How do we achieve leadership, or how do I achieve growing in my career? Right. I would like to ask both of you, and I think this is going to be, the last question, because I really would like to hear from you all. So, Charron, please.
So, you know, in addition to, like I said, searching out those opportunities for training and development and all of that, I would also say, because I want to talk a little bit about advocacy, you know, because I think that's really important to your point about like it being a boys' club. I'm in security. there's not a lot of women in security. There definitely ain't no Black women in security. It's like minuscule. So I'm very much about advocating. And so I think that that's a really great opportunity for someone who maybe doesn't want that day-to-day supervisory responsibility to still leverage their leadership and their management skills by getting involved in different advocacy organizations. We have a plethora, like UC Women in Technology, all kinds of groups on our campuses at the system-wide level where you can get involved and you can take that leadership opportunity and you can grow those skills where you're managing large projects and you're directing people, but just in an advocacy and an outreach and an education kind of perspective. And sometimes those things then lead you towards, I actually do want to do this in my day-to-day life. And I just also, because it was like in my head, like, where does the stigma come from? I'm sorry, I just have to go back a little bit. I think it has a lot to do with this idea that we are what we do. And I really want us to get away from that. You know, we are not what we do. We are not what we produce. And so I think once we as, you know, individual contributors, because even as managers, I just work here, I get a paycheck just like everybody else. I am not what I do. I'm not my title. I am me. I'm a person. And the choices that I make are the choices that I make that are good for myself and for my family, and hopefully also in service to the institution. But I think that if we can get away from this idea that we are what we produce, it would just go such a long way to getting rid of that stigma about staying in an individual contributor role.
Thank you, Charron. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I think to add on to Charron, you know, I think maybe even looking at asking to do informational interviews with, asking, you know, can I do an informational interview with you? I'd like to learn more about what you're doing. Can I learn from, you know, either maybe there's opportunities for job shadowing, training and conferences, I think are definitely like something like this. I think networking is something that's very big, right? Networking, I think you grow your network. You never know where that connection may take you, right? An opportunity may come up, they may think of you. I've seen that happen for numerous folks. And then I think also what I talked about earlier, like looking at exploring being a work lead, looking at asking your manager, can I lead a project? I'm very interested in this. I'm looking to see if kind of where my career path might take me. One thing that we do in UCLA is we also, once folks have completed, you know, 6 months in their role, we have them complete a career discussion exercise with their manager. I think that exercise is really great. It has the employee, as an employee, you tell your manager, what are the things that you like about your job? What are the things you dislike about your job? What are the things, you know, is there anything in past roles that you've done that you really enjoy? Are those, so it kind of gives a guideline for both the manager and the employee to have a discussion. Also, it asks, you know, are there roles in this organization that you're interested in? And then it puts it on you in terms of finding out as the employee, what do you think, what are those skill sets you think you need to acquire to be able to get that role? I think, and that helps just facilitate that conversation that a lot of times just doesn't happen. Managers and employees just are busy with day-to-day work, getting projects done, meeting deliverables. I think some managers are really great about having those periodic check-in meetings and having those conversations, but a lot of times it doesn't happen. And I think that this is a great kind of that facilitator for that conversation.
Thank you. Yeah.
The checklist is linked in our resources too. So it's the template from UCLA, but you can personalize it for yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Charron. Thank you, Rashmi. So it's 11:37. I really would like to hear your questions. And again, I think we should take advantage of the knowledge of these two great women. So, Carol, can you please help us with the questions?
Yes, you can enter to Slido.com, virtual and in person, and you can submit your question there, and you can also upvote a question if you are interested in learning more about it. So, let's start with this question. It's anonymous, and it says, how often do you feel your minority identities come into play at work, in a positive way, in a negative way? How do you do it?
Mm-hmm. Who would like to take? I can. So yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. As a BIPOC woman and as a woman in IT, so as I mentioned earlier, women in IT are still very few. And if you add to that, I'm a woman of color. And if you add to that, I'm a Native woman. I think I'm the only Native woman or person in the whole Berkeley IT. So that is I think that in and of itself is the P word, right? I think that's politics already. I need to be very careful what I bring. I need to be very careful how I talk. I need to be very careful what I say. I need to be careful how I conduct myself. Like I always have to be monitoring myself. And I've heard really bad things, for instance, in the kitchen when we were pre-pandemic, right? Sometimes they would say, oh, you're going to eat tacos, right? No. And people, they just, for them, it's even nice to say. Not long ago, somebody told me, one of the boys club, a white colleague told me, oh, we're so happy that you're here because with you, we are finally meeting our DEI/BJ quota. So, and that was like a year ago, maybe. So that doesn't happen to white women, right? Nobody tells a white woman, I'm so glad you're, maybe they told you that 40 years ago, but not now. So it is a trip, right? So that's why for a lot of us BIPOC women in IT, so besides adding the thing, right, that we're women, we still need to deal with because you are a woman of color. So that adds additional heavy weight, right, to us. So yeah, in my case, I have to be very careful on bringing my identity. I'm very proud about my identity. And as I mentioned, I'm Native, and I can tell I'm from the Xicatenochca Nation. I'm very happy about it, proud about it, yet I cannot say it every day. Maybe this is like the third time I've said it in like 15 years or something in IT. So, but thank you. I don't know if Charron or Rashmi want to share.
So I'm the opposite of Patricia. I don't watch what I say, and I'm going to be who I'm going to be, and it's just going to be what it's going to be. I just don't have the energy for it. My mom said I was born that way. So it's like 47 years is not going to change. But it definitely does come into play. You know, I have the instances, and no offense, where it's like, oh, you must be the admin. No, nothing wrong with being an admin, but that's not me. You know, just different things like that, or different expectations. I remember when I joined the health campus and I was invited to attend some leadership meetings. And my thought, and this is something that I share with my staff to this day, is that if you are in the room, it's your responsibility to make sure that the information that you have and the expertise that you have is being brought forward. That's why you're there. Otherwise, they wouldn't have invited you. And so I remember very much so that's how I came into those meetings. Like, I'm there. So when things would come up and I had the information on it, I would speak up and I would say. And I remember very distinctly, a member of the boys club took me to the side after a meeting and was like, basically like, you're not supposed to talk. You're just supposed to be here in the room, maybe take some notes, and that's it. And I was just like, yeah, no, thanks for that, sir. But I'm going to keep on doing what I do because I know my purpose and I know what I'm doing and I know that I'm working excellence and all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, it's a constant thing, but I think you get to decide for yourself how you present and how you kind of go about your career. And I'm also cognizant of the fact that there are many women and many women of color, Black women, brown women, who don't feel comfortable to live the way that I live and to work the way that I work. And so I take it as my responsibility to be that voice so that they can have a better experience without maybe putting themselves into jeopardy or into situations where they might be retaliated against or other things like that. So I take that very seriously.
Thank you, Charron.
Yes, we have would you like to?
Yeah, I think just to add, I think some of this kind of starts at the very beginning of even trying to get women of, just women in general or minorities into the organization. I think something to be mindful of, is kind of when managers are putting together their interview panels, even to be mindful of having a diverse interview panel, of women, men, right? So you have different genders, also different ethnicities, because, if you're like as a female, if you come onto an interview panel, you're interviewing for a position with all men, that could be intimidating. You could feel a little bit you're not resonating maybe with the panel members as much. So I think being just mindful at the onset of that to try to just encourage folks who are interviewing that are, female or just a minority, right? That you feel comfortable in that setting to perform your best in that interview.
Leveling up would also mean getting a higher salary. As an individual contributor, how do you advocate for higher salary while continuing being an individual contributor?
So I think that's always a tough topic, right? So I think at UC, we're bound by certain policies when it comes to, equity increases, reclasses, and things like that. But I mean, I have seen, where as an individual contributor, again, like where that your expertise lies in that particular area. I have seen where that particular person's salary is more than some that we see in the management level, right? So I think it depends on the career track that you're in. And I think that's where it comes back to, there are so many opportunities across all the UCs, right? Not just your location, where you can look at positions that may not exist in your organization. And I think that kind of like having that conversation again with your manager, there might be, there's something that they haven't thought of, that you bring something to their attention, it creates the need for a new position. I think with IT too, it's always changing, right? So there's always change in IT that necessitates the need for either organizing an area or creating new positions, increasing headcount. I think where the salary, if I think being open with your manager is fine. You feel like you want to advocate for yourself, that you feel like, hey, I feel like I should be making X amount, but also coming with supporting reasons for why you should be, making that certain amount that you're looking for. Or then it opens that conversation with your manager. Hey, in order to, increase your salary, this is kind of the positions that you would need to look at and have that conversation, or even reach out to your HR folks. I think they're, we are happy to, or I'm usually happy to kind of talk with people to kind of, here's a career path where you can see your salary, your compensation increase. I think the other thing is being willing to take on additional responsibilities. Sometimes that, you take on higher level duties, may not be at the level to kind of reclassify the person or, promote them into the next level, but enough to get to that next, a component. Say you're a P4 and you start taking on more architectural responsibilities. That's a component of your job that is more at the P5 level. There's opportunities to adjust compensation at that point too.
I would also say educate yourself. Not all of us have managers or in situations where our managers are actively looking out for us and making sure that we're being paid equitable, or, bringing forward reclass opportunities or anything. So it's kind of up to you. So, our salaries are posted out there, so you can go out there and see what other folks are making. It's always 2 years behind, but you can estimate the current salary because we all get the same kind of increases. So you can kind of figure out, okay, what would they be making now in that role to see, am I being paid equitable? The career tracks are out there, the salaries are out there, the scale. So you can see, like, I'm way below midpoint. Like, I need to talk to my manager because I should at least be at midpoint. Making sure you're educated about the processes, like how do reclasses work? Do I have to wait for my manager to implement, start the process? Can I start the process? Like, making sure you really understand and like take ownership of your career and your salary. And I would say the last thing, because I know a lot of times as women, we do not do this because we feel like people are going to look at us kind of crazy, or maybe we won't get the role. Please, please, please negotiate your salaries. Like, it's not that manager's money. It's not coming out of their wallet. It's not coming out of their paycheck. You need to be educated and understand what that role is paying and then ask for it, because they will not always offer you what they have available to pay you, and they will bring you in inequitable. And it is so hard to get out of that space. So please advocate for yourselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Charron, Patricia, and Rashmi. It's time for us to finalize the panel. Thank you. We deeply appreciate your insights in this topic on succeeding as a woman in technology. Now that we can we please give it a round of applause? Well, now that we conclude our panel discussion, I invite all of you to join us at the Lower Spro Plaza for lunch. Be on the lookout for a table with a Women in Tech sign. We have reserved this table for networking. dedicated to women and allies. This is the opportunity for you to connect with us, with the community, and support one another. Once again, I extend my sincere gratitude to all of you. And thank you, everyone.